Hello again, everybody. Welcome to beautiful New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and the Epic Flight Academy. This is the Private Pilot Ground School course. I'm Mike Thompson, and to be successful in the course, you are going to want to, number one, study this content online and all of the related links and documents. Number two, view these videos in parallel to that content. And thirdly, review all of this content one-on-one with your flight instructor. You know, just the other day I was flying along and I was up rather high, 15,000 feet, and I started feeling a little bit dizzy. And I had to remind myself, I'm starting to experience a form of hypoxia, and at these altitudes I can only fly so long before the FARs require that I use supplemental oxygen. Well, what are we talking about here? We're talking about human respiration, and in particular, hypoxia. Now, let's quickly review the four types of hypoxia. Hypoxia, as a general term, means that the tissues in the body are not receiving enough oxygen. Okay, the tissues in the body are not receiving enough oxygen. Well, what tissues? Could be any tissues, all tissues, brain tissue, heart tissue, muscle tissue, nerve tissue, any tissue. Okay, why might it not receive enough oxygen? There's a good question. It might be an insufficient supply, inadequate transportation, the inability of the body to use oxygen. So let's take a look at the four main types of hypoxia and see if we can break that down. So here's the slide from your online course, and you see the first type of hypoxia is called Hypoxic Hypoxia. And this is oftentimes the most insidious and sometimes the most lethal, and it's the type that I was experiencing just recently at 14 or 15,000 feet. And luckily I was aware of it. I've been trained in this and I know the regulations, and I was descending within the required amount of time back to lower altitudes. I was experiencing hypoxic hypoxia. What is that? It's the decrease of oxygen molecules available to my system because of the increase in altitude. Now, we know that in general terms, the atmosphere is approximately 20% oxygen and 80% nitrogen. Those numbers are not exact, but they're ballparks that get us close. Here's what we need to remember with hypoxic hypoxia. Those percentages of gases stay the same as I go up in altitude, but the pressure as I go up in altitude is reduced, so the pressure to push that oxygen through the alveoli in my lungs is less, so my body is getting less oxygen. That's hypoxic hypoxia. The second type is called hypemic hypoxia. And what this means is the blood, for whatever reason, is unable to carry a sufficient amount of oxygen out to the tissues that require it. Now, there might be several medical conditions that lead to hypemic hypoxia, but there is a condition that we want to review, and that is carbon monoxide poisoning. Now, the inhalation of carbon monoxide leads to hypemic hypoxia because carbon monoxide molecules are attracted to the red blood cells in your bloodstream and displace the oxygen molecules that red blood cell would normally carry. So the carbon monoxide is taking the place of the oxygen on that red blood cell, and the tissues are becoming hypoxic. That's called hypemic hypoxia. The third type, and you can see it in our online course, that is stagnant hypoxia. This is the lack of oxygen to the tissues as a result of poor circulation of the blood. Now, all of us want to hold a first-class medical and stay in pretty good physical shape as pilots. How might that happen to a pilot? Well, it could happen on a long distant flight. We've got a long cross country. We've been sitting in the same seat for a long time, not really moving very much, and that blood is starting to become stagnant in different parts of my body, and it's not really circulating the oxygen that we need it to. That is stagnant hypoxia. And then the fourth and final type that we study is called histotoxic hypoxia. And the key word there is toxic. Histotoxic are from various toxins, like drugs. That would include cigarettes and alcohol. And that causes us to have the inability to move the oxygen to the tissues that require it. That is histotoxic hypoxia. Now, one thing we want to do when we study hypoxia is review the signs and symptoms so that we've got those in our mind if we start to experience this, like the other day when I was up at 14 or 15,000 feet and I was starting to get a little bit dizzy, my fingertips were starting to tingle a little bit, and I knew immediately, well, that's hypoxia. Okay, and you can see those symptoms listed here. Some of the symptoms are headache, decreased reaction time, impaired judgment, visual impairment, drowsiness, tingling in the fingers, numbness, okay, blue fingernails or blue lips, that's called cyanosis. Now, a couple of important things I want you to remember. Number one, the individual person may experience different symptoms from someone else and may experience them at different levels of severity. So all of these symptoms will not be true for all pilots, and we won't all experience them at the same rate or at the same time. The second very important thing I want you to remember is take a look at the list of symptoms for hyperventilation. And we're going to see that the list of symptoms for hyperventilation looks very much like the list of symptoms for hypoxia. Well, these are two completely different conditions. Hyperventilation is exactly what it says. I'm ventilating my lungs at a hyper rate. That means faster than normal. That means I'm doing this. I'm getting very excited and I'm starting to hyperventilate and I'm discharging more carbon dioxide than I normally discharge during normal breathing. Now, when I hyperventilate and I discharge excess amounts of carbon dioxide, I start to experience symptoms that are similar to hypoxia. Now, do you see the danger here? If I'm experiencing similar symptoms and hyperventilation is not that serious, I just need to calm down or rebreathe a little bit, but hypoxia could potentially be deadly. Here's the problem. Same symptoms, which one do I have? I don't know. So what do? Think about it for a second. What would you do? Treat it as though it were hypoxia. Exactly right. And the treatment is going to be ventilation and descending. And your instructor will talk to you in a lot more detail about that. Well, folks, those are the highlights we wanted you to be aware of when it comes to human respiration and hypoxia. We'll see you next time.